what most of the people in the movement that elected Donald Trump want is they want to see the United States taken seriously again on the international stage. They want to see their president speaking and other presidents and prime ministers listening to what that person says.
Well, listening to President Trump a bit earlier on in Davos, he was very, very keen through a large part of his speech to trumpet what he presented as major accomplishments. Initially on the economy, inflation down, the deficit down, the tariff plan, the tariff policy working just as he'd hoped and better than he'd hoped. It all sounded very positive from President Trump, but Donald Trump's poll ratings are going down in so many significant ways back home in the United States. We can get the thoughts of Benjamin Harnwell now, who's the international editor of the War Room podcast, which is driven by Steve Bannon, one of the president's most prominent and best-known supporters in the MAGA movement. Hello to you, Benjamin, and welcome.
John, hey, good evening to you. Great honour to be on your show.
It's good of you to come along and talk to me. Thank you. You've been watching Davos. Do you think that's going to go down well at home with American voters?
Look, absolutely. And this is the reason people often misunderstand what the Make America Great Again mandate is. And it's not the typical GOP agenda of reduced states, small taxes, less regulation, which they promised and hardly ever delivered. What they really wanted, what most of the people in the movement that elected Donald Trump want, is they want to see the United States taken seriously again on the international stage. They want to see their president speaking and other presidents and prime ministers listening to what that person says.
Yes.
And that, if you see how, we just finished 1 year yesterday of the second mandate, you can see that is exactly what is happening. Donald Trump is driving the agenda right across the world. Now, so you might quibble about the economy, you might quibble about, say, personal debt that's building up with the national debt. And those are obviously important considerations. But the fundamental issue of Americans wanting to see their country taken seriously again is, I think, a success after 365 days. Absolutely, yeah,
right.
Of course.
Well, I'm focusing on some of the big issues on the table, as you'd expect, at Davos today and in the president's speech. And he didn't he, rule out the idea of a military invasion of Greenland. That idea, Benjamin, I suggest to you, was entirely mad from the start. And I see the president's handling of the issue of Greenland is going down not at all well with many Americans. A majority of Americans, including a large number of Republicans, registered Republicans, think it's the wrong way to go. They disagree with that policy.
Well, first of all, let's break that down. There's the first point that there is a proportion of the United States that doesn't yet see the need for the Greenland to become totally under the control of the United States.
Well, most of them oppose it. They don't just not see it, they oppose it.
I think people are going to see over the coming decades, regardless of whether the United States takes Greenland or not, that is a defendable argument for the United States to have. As to the other part of your question, yeah, sure, Donald Trump said at Davos today that they weren't going to be taking Greenland by force.
Yes.
He's ruled it out before, only for like a week or so later to turn back and say with equal conviction and vehemence, we're going to take it. So what I would suggest very gently to the European elites at Davos, watching what the president said, don't take him for granted on this. It is his intention, one way or another, by the end of his presidency, that Greenland should be part of the United States. And by the way, don't take for granted his assurance today that they won't take it by force either.
Right. Basically, Benjamin, you're inviting me not to take seriously some of the most important things the president said today. You suggest that
not at all.
You want to keep open the possibility that Donald Trump may go back on what he said today, and the threat of military force against Greenland may again come back onto his agenda. Is that what you're saying?
There are two things here, right, John? Firstly, always take President Trump seriously, but understand how to interpret what he says. It's his tactic that he uses all the time, right? He'll say X one day, and then the following day he'll countermand that and say the exact opposite, and then he'll flip the following day.
Yeah.
This is a tactic that he is using to destabilize people, to increase his negotiating hand. And I think he's using it quite effectively.
Well, I mean, I could suggest to you that, because you've made the point, you think the point of all of this, or a important point of this, is that President Trump should be taken seriously. I mean, doing flip-flops on such important matters of the Western alliance, you could argue is not the way to be taken seriously. But the president is clearly, isn't he, Benjamin, very disdainful of NATO. Would you be concerned, and do you think the MAGA movement would be concerned, if NATO came to the conclusion that it had to proceed without America as a fully committed ally?
Firstly, I must push back, John, on what you just said.
Please do.
Right, about being taken seriously. President Trump is... listen, I don't agree with everything he says, right? But he is absolutely taken seriously. Contrast with the way he is taken seriously with his immediate predecessor, Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden, he had a line and he broadly stuck to it. Nobody in the world took him seriously. So I must push back on that. He is taken seriously. People might not like what he says. They might not like the way he says it. They might not like the way he communicates what he is. But he's absolutely taken seriously. And it's very much feared seriously that he's taken as well. But with regards to NATO, a huge proportion of the movement that follows the show that I'm an analyst on, the Steve Bannon's War Room, huge proportion of our War Room posse would like to see the United States leave NATO, and they think it'd be better for the United States and also for NATO if Europe exclusively took on its own shoulders responsibility for its own defence. And I would suggest that that is something both sides should be working towards right now.
All right, Benjamin, love to keep talking, but time catches up. Benjamin Harnwell, international editor of the War Room podcast with Steve Bannon. Thank you so much.